All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. How's it going, Fred?
Man, James, you know, it's been just a little over 24 hours since I last saw you.
I know,
right here.
You are so fortunate you get another 3 hours of me today, baby.
That's right. And, you know, and I'm back to that, you know, even in our pre-recording here, I'm like, we need to release all the episodes at once so people can just binge.
We had this conversation yesterday. That's not going to happen.
I have the pendulum has swung to the other end.
every Monday morning, a new episode drops, a cadence. People get used to it. Don't mess with people's schedule, Fred. Now, we're going to cut right to it because the gentlemen sitting here across from us have a lot of important things to do to serve and protect our city.
That's right.
I'm going to give Chief Ellenburg the intro that he deserves. He hails from the planet Krypton. His parents, Darryl, and whatever his mom's name is, put him in a spaceship to escape the destruction of planet Krypton. And he came to Earth somewhere around 50 years ago. And we know him now as the savior of the world. He is Kal-El, a.k.a. Superman. But he's wearing a costume today of a shaved head, bearded chief of police in McKinney, Texas. Please welcome Kal-El, a.k.a. Joe Ellenburg. How's it going, Joe?
It's going great. Thanks for having me.
Hope you don't mind me ad-libbing a little bit with your backstory.
A little bit, yeah.
Oh, man. And also, I should say, Darryl, Stafford?
Saffold.
Stafford is not it. No, Saffold.
But you would think that it was it by the amount of people that do call me Darryl Stafford. So I may just do a legal name change and save everybody some trouble.
Yeah, you could coattail off of a quarterback.
Yeah.
You know, I was hanging with my brother Matt.
Yeah, and you are the public information officer for the PD, or PIO as it is in law enforcement terms.
Yes,
so.
Sir.
Everybody knows what the chief does, and we'll get into all of that. As the PIO, what is your role for the department?
So my role is, in the title, to disseminate information to the public. At the McKinney Police Department, and Chief Ellenburg and I agree that it is important to be transparent. So the things that we share with the public in the interest of keeping everybody informed is kind of my job.
Gotcha.
So you're the social media guy?
I am the social media guy.
So you're the one who put all those bragging rights out there for that snowman that y'all arrested.
Yes, I'm the one that put it out there, but I didn't ask. Man, those guys took it upon themselves to put that together, and I give them credit, man. That was pretty funny.
Some of us were Team Frosty and thought he might have been framed. I'm just saying.
So I'm thinking back to the most recent time that I saw stuff from social media from the PD, which, by the way, if you're responsible for half of those ideas, you are one funny dude. I got to hand it to you.
I appreciate
McKinney Police Department. If you're not following them on social, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, wherever they are, that's a great, great follow. It is obviously very useful stuff too, but man, there's some real funny stuff the PD puts out. It makes you guys a lot more human, easier to interact with.
That's right.
Well, I appreciate
Community policing at its finest, right, Chief?
That's the go, yes.
There you go. So if there's a problem that needs a statement made, if the media comes to the PD and, what happened over here, you're the guy they talk to, right?
Yeah, more or less. So depending on what it is, there is a collaborative effort there.
Yeah.
Where we'll kind of get together and discuss the intricacies, and then, but yes, they do ultimately come to me, or I am the one that disseminates that information out.
Cool. How about that? Now we have a face with a name.
I'm telling you. Chief, you have been in McKinney for about 30 years, right?
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. Why don't you give us the backstory before you came on the force in PD, like how you chose law enforcement as a career, like what it was like growing up, if you did other things prior to that, if you grew up wanting to be a police officer, and that's how it turned out. Love to hear that story from you.
Yeah, but first we have to know, when your feet first touched the earth, was it Texas soil?
Well, yes, I was born in Hunt County.
All right. Oh, so
No
just up the
kidding.
road.
Just up the road.
How about that?
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know how far you want me to go back.
As far back as you want to, Chief.
I went through K through 12 in Leonard High School, which is in Fannin County, about 25 miles north of here. Typical childhood. Went off to try to play some college football, and
What position?
I was a nose guard.
Oh.
But
Smash.
college wasn't for me at the time. I found myself living back at home. I had taken some criminal justice courses, so there was a little bit of an interest, but not really a reality. And I remember my father and I had gotten into an argument. I was 20 years old, and he made my mom sit down with back then the Sunday paper, and we were going to find me a job that would allow me to move out and be independent. And Sheriff Terry Box was hiring correctional officers. All that was required was a high school diploma, and I think it paid $18,000 a year. And I applied and was accepted, and it was just going to be temporary until I went back to college, and I guess that was in 1992. So 33 years later, I'm still in my temporary gig.
There you go.
What were you trying to study in college?
I wasn't real clear. Sports medicine, maybe.
College.
Right, college.
Girls.
Exactly. And I did go back to college as an adult as a police officer to get my degree, but we talk about how you're called to this profession, and there is a lot of ways. A lot of times kids know they want to be a cop from the time they're in kindergarten, but the profession just kind of found me. So in 1995, I crossed the street back then and went from the Collin County Sheriff's Department to the McKinney Police Department.
Oh.
And have been here ever since.
It crossed the street, as they say.
Yes, the Collin County Sheriff's Department that I worked in is actually down by the downtown square. There's an apartment building, business structure there.
Yep.
And then directly across the street, it's, I believe that's Davis Street, is municipal court. And that used to be the police department up until 2006.
Okay. So is the PD operating in the new municipal complex, or do you guys have a separate facility somewhere else?
No, we have a separate facility that was built in 2006. It's at the it's at Taylor Burke Community behind the just north of the college campus there on 380.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm familiar with that part of town.
Right.
Good deal. So you've been in McKinney in the police department since, I'm trying to do the math here. How many years is that?
This is my 30th year.
Okay.
With McKinney
in
PD.
McKinney PD. Wow. A lot of perspective, huh?
I've seen a lot of change, a lot of growth. I believe when I was hired, and these numbers may not be accurate, but I was one of 32 police officers, and I want to say the population was right around 20,000 people.
And how many sworn officers do we have now?
We're allocated after April. It will be 272.
Okay. I knew it was somewhere in the 200 range.
Yeah.
Man. So from, 20 officers, 30 officers to almost 300.
Yeah.
Wow.
Unprecedented growth for sure.
When you reflect on the differences between McKinney as you knew it, the PD as you knew it, early in your career, there's one or two things that really stand out to you that are just completely different as far as policing goes.
Well, everything west of Hardin Road was a dirt road that you couldn't go down if it rained, or a rock road. So geographically, pretty much Hardin East was the city, so it was a lot easier to. Back then, you had to memorize the streets, so it was a lot easier to do that. I think McKinney's kind of unique in the fact that even though we are a big city now, a major city, it's still kind of that small town feel, if you will.
Mm-hmm. We like to refer to McKinney as the biggest small town in the country.
That's correct.
So, 220,000 people in a small town.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to run into folks at the grocery store. So, kids, you better not step out of line too far. You're going to find someone yanking your ear off.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So, sorry, Fred. Here you go. You've been sitting there patiently.
No, I've got a couple questions that I'm lining up here.
Okay. So what were you doing early on? You started in patrol like everybody does, right?
That's correct.
And how was your path through the ranks? A little bit of context. My college roommate, best friend in the whole world, he's been in law enforcement almost his entire career. Started in Arlington PD and dispatch, and then moved to Burleson and spent a number of years there, went through the ranks. He was patrol and sergeant, and then they created a lieutenant rank there as the department's getting bigger. And now he recently just moved over to Lake Worth. He's going to be the deputy chief at Lake Worth. Starting in, I think, March.
Right.
So I've had the privilege of being around law enforcement through Tim for 20-something years. Been on, I don't know, a dozen ride-alongs or whatever. Been in the station a lot for somebody who's just a civilian. So I know all about the normal day-to-day grind of paperwork and putting up with knuckleheads and their nonsense and whatnot. And what path did you take through the chain and all that?
I feel like I have one of the most blessed careers that I've ever seen in law enforcement. I believe that prior to making chief. So chief wasn't the thing that made me feel as blessed as I am. But I served in patrol. I got to be a school resource officer a few years after my career, promoted to corporal. I I got to be the internal affairs sergeant for a little over a year. I used to say I spent the majority of my career in undercover narcotics, but that's actually not true now that I'm on my 30th year. But for 12 years, I was involved in the narcotics unit. So as a detective, I was assigned to 2 different task force. One was a governor's task force out of Denton, and one was a FBI task force out of Plano. I promoted to the rank of sergeant. That's when I went to the internal affairs unit. And after about a year, I was able to return to the narcotics unit as the sergeant, where I spent almost 10 years as the sergeant. After that, it happened pretty rapidly. I promoted to lieutenant. Within a couple of years, I was a deputy chief. Within a couple of years after that, I was an assistant chief, and I was an assistant chief from 2013 to 2022 when I was appointed chief of police. So
Gotcha.
I've really gotten to do just almost everything there is to do in a police department.
Love it.
Yeah.
Man, that's got to be so helpful for your role leading a department of, when you factor in civilians, over 300 people
Right.
in the department are looking to you for leadership, for vision, for executing, Paul Grimes, your boss, executing the vision of the staff and council. But do you have the perspective that you do of being at each level where you didn't jump in, you didn't skip steps, whatever, like
Right.
You've seen every level of the PD. So you know firsthand what it looks like to have good leadership and at times probably less than good leadership.
Yes, I think the one benefit it gives me is I tell my family that my work family's older than any family I have that's still alive. So the ability to just genuinely care about the men and women who work at the police department, I consider them my family. So
Love it.
I make decisions that they aren't always popular, but I truly think it benefits not just the citizens of McKinney and the city of McKinney, but the men and women who work there and do such a honorable job.
Fred, are we to your teed up question yet?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, you asked
juking.
you asked the one about the tell us about that, your progression through the ranks. I have a couple questions. One is just out of curiosity because I was what's her name, Anna Navarro.
Yes.
Yes, I was at a conference. I was photograph conference where she was speaking, and she talked about the challenges of being a woman in this field because there are challenges that come with it. And one thing she said was that it wasn't like a hard rule, but somewhere in there, the ability to manage a fight. She talked about that. And having to represent as law enforcement, it's not like you can sit there and go, well, I do or I don't. It's this is the law and that is outside of it. You're in. Do you remember your first fight? Darryl.
Well, I grew up in Fannin County, so my first fight wasn't as a professional. But I will tell you something that every police officer knows is everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
Yes, sir.
And
Yep.
There's what everybody knows they would do, and then there's the reality of what you do.
Mm-hmm. And so, but naturally, the idea is de-escalation.
Absolutely,
but not
yeah.
that. And related to that, so when you started on the force, how many women were part of the PD at that point?
Well, I won't be able to tell you the exact number, but I'm going to say you could probably count them on 2 hands. Mm-hmm. Women have always had a presence in law enforcement, so I've been there and have always played a very vital role. Usually they come into the department with de-escalation skills that prove to be very effective on the streets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I saw actually I guess it's within the last year there were several women that promoted within the department.
Yes,
I saw the post about that. And
I had the honor to promote Anna Navarro to deputy chief, which is a member of my command staff early on in my chief role.
And she is amazing. She is absolutely amazing. So kudos to you guys for not being a good old boys club. And as we're in a room full of guys, and I know that we're testosterone rich, and we just want to go out there and just do all the things. But I've met several other women PD. One of them actually motorcycle. And she actually, is typically stationed up when I'm heading up Lake Forest to go work out.
Officer Jones.
Yes, and I'm always, but it's dark, and I'm always like, just like, no catch me.
Are you trying to incriminate yourself?
No, I'm
Are you talking about driving at excessive speeds, Mr. Mahusay?
I enjoy my sleep, but I also know I got to get up and work out. And so sometimes there's a conflict and I'm like, I got to get going.
So speaking of Officer Jones and women in law enforcement, I don't know if I can say she actually was recognized recently at the North Texas Chiefs of Police Association for pulling a man out of a burning car.
Really?
Yeah. So she's
an impressive lady.
Yes.
Yeah. How about that?
Now, this one goes to either one of you guys. You both obviously have a big perspective on this question. When you look at the state of policing in general and in law enforcement in McKinney and North Texas and whatnot, what do you feel like the state of the union is as far as the way that the state of the industry, I should say, the way that policing coexist with the civilian population, with other governmental organizations, with the fire department? Any way you want to answer that question, just the way that things are for law enforcement in 2025.
I'll take that. I feel like we're extremely blessed in McKinney. I try to attend every testing we have when recruits come to apply here, and I let them know that we're going to be extremely picky, and here's why. We believe we're one of the best police departments in the nation. We also know that it's the men and women who work there that make us the best police department in the nation. But there's not enough that could be said about how law enforcement supportive the community of McKinney, the county of Collin is. I can't tell you how many times wearing this uniform we get told by our waitress at lunch that someone's picked up your tab, or how many people walk across a parking lot to shake our hand and just thank us for what we do. So it's a privilege to do it in this community. I realize there's parts of the nation who aren't as blessed as we are, but the officers feel very supported by the community. I'm convinced they want us all to weigh 300 pounds because there's not a week that goes by that someone hasn't delivered food to the department for 300 people. Mm-hmm. So they go out of their way to show their appreciation for the police department.
That's excellent. And I would say, as someone in the community and in, my neighborhood in particular, there's a strong appreciation for the PD. But on the flip side, what do you think is probably one of the most pressing issues facing the police department?
There's several internally. It would be the recruiting and retention of officers. I don't know that law enforcement was marketed that well over the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. We go to great lengths to make sure that we're finding the men and women who are called to do this profession. We believe that needs to be the case in order for you to do this successfully. One of the other external challenges is keeping up with the rapid growth of McKinney. Mm-hmm. I think y'all just did a segment on the new airport. Yep. And we have a concert venue coming and a surf lagoon attraction. So we have to keep up with that growth and be able to provide those services. On a crime fighting side, I would probably say it's the technology aspect that as rapidly as technology is going, it's not just the good guys that use technology, it's the criminals that use technology too. So I have to take police officers and give them the training to make them just as smart as someone who works at Microsoft or Dell to be able to keep pace with the criminals. Mm-hmm. AI is a great new technology that's actually already being used in criminal activity.
I think this may be a question for Darryl as on an individual level, just your perspective as a man of color, as a person of color in a policing context. There's been a lot of one-off situations in McKinney over the last decade or so that have had racially charged energy, where lots of strong statements are made one way or the other. I love how diverse our department is. I think it's well represented of the population of McKinney. And when I look at the layout of our city, I have to acknowledge the fact that some people come into the policing conversation with different assumptions. I was born and raised in a family that respected and admired the police, that didn't have anything wrong with, they didn't have any beef with cops in general. And I recognize that in some communities, some areas of not just our city, but DFW as a whole, like policing as a category are viewed with suspicion, bitterness, hostility, and whatnot, whether or not that's warranted. how does McKinney Police Department approach the needs to be sensitive to certain groups of populations in our city, whether it's socioeconomic or ethnic, demographics, whatever, to be as inclusive and aware and emotionally intelligent as possible? Because different stakeholders in our city view the police categorically very differently.
Sure. I think it starts with empathy. If we approach a situation and say, just for the sake of simplicity, because that's a very complicated question, and we could sit here all day, the four of us, trying to dissect this, and probably not end up that much further from where we started. But I think that we, as a department, preach and try to instill upon officers and anybody really that if you approach situations with empathy, just trying to understand where that person is coming from, I think you can get extremely far with that, because I don't necessarily have to have lived your experience or specifically know where you come from or come from the same place as you. But if I can just at least take myself out of myself for a second to hear you and where you're coming from, I think we can accomplish a lot of things. And I think that's why at the McKinney Police Department we're so successful in interacting with the public, because we do try to put that first, like remove ourselves. Okay, where are you coming from? And maybe we can meet in the middle so we can solve this problem together.
And I'd like to add to that.
Go for it, Chief.
We have a three-pronged motto, and one of it is treat people the way you want to be treated.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are areas within our nation that a chief is forced to view a citizen contact as a potential liability. It may become, a sensational incident. And I'd like to take credit for this, but it's not. This is just the North Texas way. And I just say North Texas because I talk to a lot of chiefs. But we are determined to keep a citizen contact as a potential to exceed customer service. So if someone does have a distrusting view of the police department, we hope to change that just a little bit with the interaction with us. So we try to view all of our officers' actions through our motto. And like I said, one is treat others the way you'd want to be treated. So if one of my loved ones was in the same situation as this person that's dealing with the police, I would want them dealt with professionally, with respect, compassion, and like Darryl said, empathy. So that's what we set out to do. We know we won't be able to change everybody's opinion of the police department, but we're definitely not going to add to it. And our goal is to maybe tweak it or change it just a little bit to the positive.
You know, in McKinney Cares, I'm one of the admins. Fred and I are both admins of that group. You know, within the last few months in McKinney, I think there's been two different incidences where there was a homicide. One was an individual took his life at a Costco, I believe, a juvenile male. And then just a few weeks prior to that, there was a murder-suicide situation. And everything all the rhetoric started popping up at that point. And out of curiosity, before I said anything, I went and looked at NCIC and other crime databases and looked at the data in McKinney. And then I reported back in that thread, I was like, guys, I get it. This is a terrible situation to have happen here. But you got to have some context. Like, McKinney is 1/3 of the average for violent crime, for homicide, for the 6 or 7 categories that you guys would consider, violent crime versus, white collar crime or something else, property crime. We're 1/3 of the national average for a city our size. And I'm just really impressed when I'm reading these statistics going, well, 30% of the national average of a per capita crime rate for a city our size. I wondered how that's possible. We were already talking with you guys at the time. I was like, when Chief is sitting in here, I've got to ask him, what do you attribute that kind of success to? Because people were popping off about, the crime's out of control in McKinney. I'm like, no, objectively, sir, no, it's not. It's not out of control. Yes, I realize that there was a murder-suicide in our town very recently, so everybody's hot about it. But in the grand scheme of things, we're an extremely safe city. And what do you attribute that success to?
Well, of course, I want to tell you that it's the great work of the McKinney Police Department under the great leadership of Chief Ellenburg. But a lot of that is just the makeup of our community, the engagement level that our community has with the police department. Again, I'll go back to my original blessing of getting to be the police chief in McKinney. It's a great community. Yeah. Even when we do have serious crimes, due to the diligence of my employees and the cooperation of the community, it's our solvability is pretty rapid, and we usually work around the clock until it's solved, and the community knows that there's nothing at large or nothing that poses a threat to them or ongoing threat.
How much more interesting and enjoyable is the work of policing, especially on the resolution side of things, for detectives, for patrol officers and whatnot, to be operating in a 2025 with all the technology, all the social media, all of the different ways that you can basically crowdsource so many different solutions, where you've got private citizens that are calling in, providing information or providing a firsthand account, and utilizing third-party data and all of these, whether it's Nextdoor or social, Facebook groups or whatever. It's a very interesting time to be policing when you think about all the technology and all of the crowd-level data that is available to you guys that even 15, 20 years ago simply didn't exist. Policing in a community engagement level was completely different even 20 years ago. What's that like for you guys, policing in a modern society that is so technology enabled?
Well,
I know it's challenging for sure.
I just recently feel like I'm pretty adequate at Microsoft Word, so technology isn't really my forte. But our employees, it is theirs, and they are expert. And it is amazing to me that when a crime happens at 8:00 at night, I can be in my office at 2 a.m. the very next morning, and the detectives have already put together video footage and all different kinds of investigative data. I won't get into that do not only help us find suspects and figure out motives, but be able to prosecute that case where it's just almost airtight, if that makes any sense. With private sector cameras, with city cameras, with private residence cameras, I mean, there's very few places in McKinney you could do something where you're probably not going to be caught on camera, and that's not even to mention everybody's cell phone camera.
Yep. Well, and when you factor in third-party data like
Yes.
GPS on a phone and being able to, subpoena something from a mobile company or a data company of some sort to get incriminating evidence that's sitting in a text message, or in some way where someone was communicating on a phone call, and you can, have that phone call be placed into evidence. It's got to be exhilarating sometimes, realizing we've got a lot of tools to get to the bottom of this situation, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the stats off the top of my head or anything, but I would have to assume as technology gets better and better, the solvability rate of law enforcement across the country probably increases.
Yeah.
Just because, like, to your point, it's a lot harder to get away with things just with the different avenues available to us to be able to solve crimes.
So when there are incidents like in a neighborhood, and in my neighborhood, well, people post about everything, and the number one answer is, did your doorbell cam get it, and things like that. So if there's an incident in a residential area and you're investigating it, do you actively go to the surrounding homes and inquire if they have footage, or is that pretty much it's up to the neighbors to come to you and say, hey, I got something?
We not only go and ask, a lot of citizens will just review their own footage and contact us to give it to us. And I'll tell you that I'm excited about this year. We will be implementing a real-time crime center. So anybody, whether it's private sector or the business sector, if they have a camera, they will have the opportunity to preemptively register or link that camera with us. So not to get too techie, but if you had camera at your house and you register it with the McKinney Police Department, then you would just get a text that says the McKinney Police Department is investigating a crime. We request the last 4 hours of video footage from your doorbell.
Okay, so it's not like you get a live monitoring feed.
Correct. But you can click granted, and then we just have access to those 4 hours.
Golly, man, I love that.
Okay,
but where yours wouldn't be linked, businesses will have the opportunity to link that.
Sure.
And then when a crime is happening, our dispatch center would be able to view right there and be able to say,
how about that?
You're not looking for just a white van. You're looking for a white van with rear quarter panel damage with this license plate number and a ladder on the top. So, yes, we're very excited about the advances in technology that allow us to not only work smarter, but it's really a force multiplier. Yeah. Something that would have taken 6 detectives 3 days to do, maybe just be instantaneous.
Yeah, that's amazing. So two things. One, we're not saying that white vans with ladders on top are a typical thing, right? We're just going to.
That was just an example.
Okay, but on the
that's what you call predictive analytics, Fred.
Well, I mean, I'm typing things and my phone thinks it knows what I want to say and all the other stuff. But at the same time, do you find that there's some pushback from the citizenry saying that's overreach? You're invading privacy.
No, not so much in this community. There's people that have questions, and I think it's our job to educate them on what this tool actually does and what we're using it for.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
The opting in part of it gets rid of the privacy concern because it is only citizens that choose to share their data with the PD. And even when there's a specific request, that too is a second opt-in. So from a privacy perspective, it's a complete non-factor because the folks that don't want to simply don't opt in.
Well, and that first opt-in is just simply, all the first opt-in would be is you saying, hey, I do have a camera.
I want to help out.
Right.
I want to do my part to keep my city safe.
But it gives us no access.
Sure.
We would always, on an individual basis, ask for access, and we'll try to confine it to the exact time that we believe this crime or suspect was captured on your camera.
Yeah, because I know that there's been a growing number of incidents where citizen journalists or First Amendment auditors are out there just recording, and people who aren't aware that photography and videography in public from public accessible points is not a crime, and I know that there are people that all of a sudden become very very agitated by the idea that there's a camera out there. So that's getting into the weeds of things. But I know that there's stuff that obviously legally there are things that still have to be shaped out because of growing camera presence.
I'm not even gonna wait for our friends in blue over here to answer this question. Let me just tell you from my perspective of being the best friend of a cop for 20 years, a patrol stop is the most dangerous time for a police officer because if somebody wants to do something bad, the officer has no idea what's happening in that vehicle.
That's right.
It is not an accident. Thank you, Tim Mabry. Love you, man. Because a long time ago, I started at every traffic stop, and I've only been stopped like 8 or 10 times in my entire life. At every traffic stop, back when we used to put keys in ignitions, I would take the keys out, I'd set them on the dashboard, I'd calmly place both hands on the top of the steering wheel, and I would just wait. I ain't going to do nothing. I'm going to let this officer walk up and see 2 hands in plain sight, see the keys on the dashboard, and telling the officer with my nonverbals, sir, I am no threat to you today. Please treat me with kindness and respect. I pose no threat to you. I've never had any problem with police. Right. The folks that want to get belligerent, it's a two-way street, right, guys? Like cops are people too. And if someone, when a police officer walks up on them just doing their job, if there's a suspicious report or some neighbor reports something or other, the cops just patrols rolling out doing their job. And when somebody comes at them with like, rah, 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 it's human nature for the cop to immediately be a little bit more like agitated, just responding to someone's, getting right in their face instantly. I know you guys have all kinds of de-escalation training. I mean, it is like a central part of modern policing, right?
Oh, yes, we train on it annually.
Yeah. How much better is it for your officers when someone just has a conversation, when someone isn't immediately just lit up angry at any engagement with the police, whether it's a traffic stop or someone doing a wellness check or whatever it happens to be? Like, how important is it for the citizens listening to this episode to realize cops are people too, chill out, just answer the question calmly. They're just trying to do their job and keep their city safe.
Well, cooperation in probably any career field always makes your job easier.
Yeah.
Out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of routine traffic stops that officers make throughout their career, there becomes the normal interaction, and then this person isn't reacting normal to a traffic stop. All that does is really heighten their alertness, their senses, and because something's not right here. It doesn't mean that a crime's afoot. It doesn't mean that someone's going to jail. But obviously the officer is realizing this. based on all of my experiences, this isn't the normal reaction to
the
a traffic
spidey senses
stop.
are going
Right.
off. The observations are being triggered. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so two-part question. I forgot the second part, so I'm just going to so the first part. No, I remember what it was. When it comes to the PD, do you just do regular shifts? There's a morning shift, afternoon, and evening shift. You don't like do multiple days on and then multiple days off like the fire department?
No, correct. We work.
Okay.
Our patrol division works 12-hour shifts. I believe our detectives right now are on 10-hour shifts.
Okay. All right. And so, with all the things we've talked about here, there is a stress factor to being, in law enforcement. What do you have in terms of mental wellness and checkup on that for the staff?
I'm so glad you asked that. So when I made chief, and of course I have the fortunateness to be the chief of the department that raised me, I kind of committed to two things. And the first won't answer your question, but now that I said two, I feel like I need to tell you both of them. With just the condition of the world, with active attacks and terrorist attacks, and most recently the attack in New Orleans, we are committed that we are going to train all year long, every year long, to make sure our response to that is accurate. But the second side is that we are going to put our money where our mouth is at the McKinney Police Department when it comes to the physical, emotional, and mental well-being of our officers. And we've taken several steps in that direction. I think we asked these men and women to do an incredibly stressful job, an incredibly hard job, not only on them but on their family, and that we need to step up and do better to make sure that when they retire, hopefully in 20, 30 years, that they retire intact. So we could get into what initiatives we've done at the McKinney Police Department, but my commitment to the city of McKinney is that is a priority of this chief, is that we're going to give our officers every resource they need. We want them to be very successful police officers, but we want them to be just as successful as human beings, as fathers, mothers, daughters, sons, best friends, because they're already going to sacrifice a lot to do this job. We just don't want them to have to sacrifice everything.
Amen to that.
Excellent.
As we kind of move towards landing the plane here, my last official question is actually I have two left. I'll let Fred take that last one there. When you think about the initiatives, the action items, the programs, the big picture stuff, as you reflect on how you intend to spend the rest of your time as chief, however long that is, what are a few of the things, one or two things that are really important to you from an action, from a programming perspective as chief?
Again, I was very fortunate to be a part with the previous chiefs of building a department that I feel like has a lot of services to provide. The previous chief created the Neighborhood Police Officer Unit, the Community Services Unit, who basically exists to address and assist with mental health issues, even homelessness issues of people who want to get help. So I feel like we are a full functioning police department. So of course I will continue to grow those units. And then I kind of answered your question with the previous answer, which is putting a really big emphasis on training, the wellness of officers, and then the recruiting and hiring of officers to keep us at the appropriate staffing level and make sure that we're able to provide the services and expectations that our community deserves and expects.
What role do you see the Chiefs Advisory Council playing as far as how things go with policy decisions and whatnot? My good friend Dr. Dre Feltus has served on, I think it was under Chief Conley. I don't know what the current state is as far as the big influential community stakeholders that are invited to participate in the Chiefs, maybe not using exactly the right terms, but basically the Community Advisory Council that serves the chief, serves to help you stay informed on things that you may not be aware of.
Yes, so that was created under the previous chief as well. It still exists. We meet regularly, and it really allows an exchange of ideas, beliefs, and just really an exchange of what's currently going on in different communities and what they offer advice to me on how to address those. And then I'm able to really take transparency to a whole new level with that group, whether it's diving into our policies or the reasons behind our policies or our tactics. I think here recently I allowed them to go through some virtual reality training and just sharing experiences. So it's been very beneficial. As a matter of fact, it's been so beneficial that we just recently created 2 more Chiefs Advisory Councils, and those will be made up of internal sworn employees and internal professional staff employees, just so that the chief can actually hear from the line level officer that, hey, here's an area we could create efficiencies in, or here's an area where we're really struggling. Because, the rumor in any large organization is that either the message doesn't make it all the way up to the top or it's filtered. And so it's been so successful with the Chiefs External Advisory Council. We've created a couple of internal advisory councils.
I love that, man. Best way to get the right information is straight from the mouth.
Yeah. And that's where the expertise is. So when it comes to solving a problem or buying a piece of technology, it doesn't need to be me deciding solely what that's going to be. I need to hear from the experts that do the job every day.
Mm-hmm. Darryl, you were going to say something there?
Yeah, just going back to that time that the advisory council came in and did the virtual reality training, they found it. I remember talking to them after that, or even after they individually got a turn to go, the perspective they gained, just because I think one of the scenarios was like a traffic stop. Well, if you've never done a traffic stop as a police officer, it's hard to get the other perspective of that. Yeah. And kind of seeing how that interaction goes from their perspective, it was very illuminating for them, and they gained new respect. Not that they didn't have it before, but it's just that newfound respect. And it just brought us a little bit closer, which was the whole objective of the advisory council to begin with.
Okay, so, I mean, we're going to have them back for another episode because there's so much going on. But how do people, I know like Coffee with Cops, that's still an active program, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yep. What are some other ways for people to find out more, interact with, get to know the police department?
Well, follow our social media page for one.
That's right. Okay, so
it's a great follow, folks. I'm not playing.
Throw out your
We'll put it all in the show notes.
Okay, all right.
It's Instagram and Facebook and TikTok,
Well, TikTok doesn't operate in Texas, but
oh, it doesn't.
No.
Okay.
For government, I should say.
Right. Okay. So it's just Instagram and Facebook
and X
and Twitter. Yeah.
And it's all
X.
McKinney PD.
X
McKinney
Twitter. I will call it Twitter until the day I die.
You know what? I'm with you there, but for not to confuse people out there.
Elon, why you got to keep changing names and stuff, man? Come on.
He likes the letter X. I don't get it.
Yeah. So okay, so yeah,
other ways that people can get involved with or get to learn more about the PD.
We try to have community engagement events year round. I think they're gearing up right now for Hooping with the Blue, which I know is geared a little bit more. Huh? It's basketball with our youth. We have a turkey bowl, which is football with our youth. We take our youth trout fishing. We have tacos with cops. We had a couple of Connecting with the Chiefs event last year, which was basically me asking my command staff to be in the community so that people could come and directly ask questions or talk about concerns with someone with chief in their title. So I would encourage them not only to follow our social media, but our social media will let them know about community engagement events. Mm-hmm. Our public's really good about just approaching us when they see us in public. But also I would encourage them, when it's convenient, call and just say, hey, I'd like to meet my beat officer, especially if you're a business in town or something, because with 12-hour shifts, typically you're going to have 4 beat officers, the 2 that cover each side of the week on days and the 2 that cover each side of the week on nights. And it's not a big deal at all for them to come by, give you a business card, shake hands, let you put a face to a name.
How about that? And then I think it's just kicked off, Citizens Police Academy.
Yeah, I believe we're doing 3 of those a year now. Or is it 2?
We average 2, depending on how the timing of it. There may be a third. The one for I guess we call it the spring, even though technically it's winter. Just actually started last week. Mm-hmm. It's going well.
How many weeks is that?
It's about 12 to 13 weeks, give or take.
And it's a great program. We also even have the teen academies that young kids can go through. It's put on during the summer. But at the end of the Citizens Police Academy, there's There's opportunities for volunteering with the police department through Citizens on Patrol, or even joining the McKinney Police Association Alumni Association. So probably just another example of a blessing here in McKinney is we have a really robust volunteer group.
Yeah, the National Night Out thing is an absolute favorite of our kids. You know, they look forward to sitting in the police car and honking the horn and blaring the sirens. That's probably their favorite part of the whole National Night Out thing. Not even the bounce houses, the pizza, believe it or not. Yeah, so that and the stickers. I don't know what it is about kids and the stickers, man.
But you know, the great thing about National Night Out, and it's one of our favorite times of the year too, but is watching the neighbors get to know their neighbors.
Yeah.
And it's so obvious that maybe they hadn't spoken before this night when their neighborhood threw a block party.
Yep.
And I mean, what a way to improve the quality of life in the city of McKinney is for neighbors to know their neighbors.
I mean, that's how you build trust.
Yeah.
No, that thing about the beat officer, I'm definitely going to do that. It hadn't occurred to me. You know, they gotta take lunch at some point, right?
Well, our goal is for our officers to have the discretionary time to not only do proactive police work,
Yeah.
investigate things that look suspicious, but get to know the people in their beat. So
Yeah.
it makes it really easy for them if, you know, they say, I don't know, Fred wants you to come by, this is his address, and, you know, when he gets a break, he just comes by and shakes hands and,
There you go.
and meets his
about that?
resident.
Have a sandwich box ready to go. Just say thank you and, you know, glad to meet you and all that. So
Sandwich box is not required, though.
no, but I mean, speaking as someone who has to eat lunch as well, and I find lunch to be irritating because most of the days I would rather just keep on plugging along.
Right.
I find the need to eat food at regular intervals to be quite a tiresome thing, if I'm being honest with you.
Right.
It gets in the way of good work. But I mean, our men and women in blue, they got to eat. You might as well, if you're having them come over, folks, have a bag of something ready for them.
I'll go back to one of my original statements. The citizens are extremely good to us.
And it's
as the chief of
privilege.
police, a lot of people don't realize that these stars on my collar mean that I'm the chief of police. And I've had more people in the last few years buy my lunch and thank me for my service. And obviously there's a responsibility to let people get the gifts that come with giving.
Sure.
But it is very humbling, sometimes hard to receive because
Yeah.
the citizens take good care of us as a police department.
Now, I got to ask, I'm looking at everything you've got on your uniform right now. Some folks have 3 stars. Some folks have 2. Some folks have 4. And then on your sleeve, you've got 5 yellow bands there. I'm guessing that's something, or 6, I'm sorry. One was hiding back there. What are the importance of the stars on the collar and the epaulets, and what do the stripes on your sleeve mean?
Well, I'll start with the stars because the stripes on my sleeve are a little embarrassing. But the chief of police in McKinney has 3 stars. I have 2 assistant chiefs who wear 2 stars to represent their rank. And then I have 4 deputy chiefs that wear 1 star. So very, very paramilitary. Our lieutenants wear the bars on their collar. Our sergeants wear 3 stripes on their sleeve. But these stripes are tenure stripes. So they just each stripe means 5
Every 5 years
so
in service.
It means I've been here 30 years.
Okay.
So
No,
each-
it's not like in Army, like every stripe on your sleeve is a tour of duty.
Right. No,
okay.
the stripes typically represent in our profession 5
Gotcha.
years of service.
Surprised I didn't already know that. Shame on me. Sorry, Tim. I know we probably talked about that.
He's going to get some heat from that one.
No. Anything else you want to ask before we let these gentlemen go?
You know, just as an aside, you know, from someone who's, you know, in my 50th plus year of walking the face of the earth, there have been several regular TV shows that have come out and about. Blue Bloods is one of my favorites. Are shows like that anywhere near accurate?
Not even in the remotest.
Really? So what you're saying is like Cops and On Patrol Live, they're more accurate.
Well, yeah.
it's still TV, though.
I will tell you that TV shows have caused a lot of citizens to think that, you know, we can test DNA on site and it's going to give us the name and the address of the suspect. Because, you know, on TV, every crime is solved within 30 minutes or
Yes,
an
sir,
hour,
absolutely.
depending on
2
how long
commercial
the show
breaks
is.
and
80% of police work is it can be very mundane. 20% of it is the opposite of that, but that 80% wouldn't make for good TV. So no, they're not accurate at all. Doesn't mean they're not enjoyable.
Sure, they're entertaining, but there's a reason why they're on at that slot in the hour. Okay.
It's so Grandma Sally could get her fix.
That's right.
Yeah.
And all the ladies can swoon over Tom Selleck.
I bet if you talk to someone in the oil industry, they'd say Landman's not very accurate either.
We just got to keep the illusion alive, Chief.
Right,
There you go.
right.
Well, actually, I have one other question. What is the speed limit on 75 and 121?
Oh, that's a very technical question. I tell you, it's the number that's on that little white sign about every mile.
Yeah, I don't know, because when I'm on there, I'm doing that number maybe a little north of there, and there is no 5 mile grace, right? So if it says 70 and I'm doing 75, I can get pulled over.
He's not going to officially answer that question in any way, shape, or form.
Because everybody always says that. It's like, oh, it says 70. Yo, you can do 75. And I'm like, no.
It's because the police have better things to do than to pull every vehicle over on the road.
Yeah, but then
when every vehicle is going 75, they're not going to pull every vehicle over.
Well,
they
no,
got stuff to do, man.
It's not the 75ers. It's the ones that are well in excess of that.
Well, those folks are going to get pulled over.
That's right.
I lost sound, so I didn't hear any of that there at the
I'm telling you.
Negative Ghost Rider, the pattern is full.
Man. No, this is just me thinking out loud here. Chief Connolly was a wonderful chief, left a great legacy. Some of the programs we've talked about began under Chief Connolly. When you think about when it's time for you to put the uniform in the closet for the last time, and when people reflect on Chief Ellenburg's legacy in the PD, a whole career spent in the PD in McKinney. Other than what you've already talked about taking great care of your officers, of course, and investing in mental health and wellness programs, which I guess is probably a big part of what your answer would be, how do you want people to think about Joe Ellenburg's legacy when you hang it up? Which I'm not saying it's today.
No, I get it.
I mean, you got some time left, of course. But when you reflect on how people think about your tenure as the leader of this department, what do you want people to think of?
That I cared. And I believe strongly that anybody who dedicates any amount of time to this career when they do hang it up it's hard for us to do this, but they should be proud of themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Having been very close with a cop for the last 20 years, I know how hard it is for you guys to be proud of yourselves.
And here's the thing we're trying to focus on too. It's not just the cop. It's the cop's
the spouse and the kids and all that. Yeah.
We try to do a really good job to make sure our officers don't miss life events. But no matter how good of a job we do, we're going to miss anniversaries, birthdays, special occasions. So we ask a lot of these people, and we get a lot in return. But I think they should get a lot in return too from their leadership and from the community, and they do. So. That was a lot of words to basically say I'd like to be remembered as someone who cared.
Yeah, and judging from how quickly Darryl started nodding his head, I think it's pretty obvious the folks under your leadership know that.
Well, so having the privilege of having been among one of his first hires when he became the chief of police, and I've been a cop for over a decade by that point in another state. There's something that he says, and I probably can't capture it the same way that he says it, but you come to us intact, but by the time you retire, how do you say it, sir?
Oh man, we're getting into the closet now. I've seen some police officers retire over my career who were legendary. We still tell stories about them, but their personal lives were in tatters. I won't get in too deep with that.
Sure.
And yeah, we bring the brightest and the shiniest stars, the pride of some mom and dad's eyes, and they're coming to do something as noble as law enforcement. And I just feel like we owe it to them to try to keep them intact. And a lot's changed in my 30 years. I know that mental health was very stigmatized early on. As a matter of fact, if you did need help and that involved any sort of therapy or medication, you had to report it to your chain of command. In order to get serious about this, we have to realize that sometimes it's okay not to be okay. It's just not okay to do nothing about it. And the big one for the chief, and this is hard, it's okay that I don't know about it either. I'd much rather have someone that is needing some assistance to be whole again than someone who's spiraling out of control.
Absolutely.
Excellent. I love it.
Fred, you want to hit him with that final question?
Oh, okay. All right. So here we go. We're going to skip the lightning round. Okay. So who would win in a fight between a great white shark and a polar bear? They're in a body of water 6 feet deep of infinite size, no edges, no land, anything to get on. Who wins, the shark or the polar bear?
I'm going to go polar bear.
Oh, polar bear.
Okay.
And Darryl?
It's 6 feet deep.
6 feet deep.
I would say under those conditions, probably the polar bear as well.
Okay.
How do you get to that conclusion, guys? El was out here.
Well, I went with 5 weapons versus 1.
That's right.
There you go.
Okay. Excellent.
Daryl?
And I figure that at 6 feet, the polar bear can stand, whereas, a little deeper, probably the shark does a little better because it swim a little better.
Oh, yeah.
So that's
Okay.
That's how I draw
I am
that.
also team polar bear. Fred is pretty firmly team shark.
I'm like for the underdog.
You only
okay.
have to worry about one end of the shark.
That's true.
Yeah, but that business end moves pretty quickly.
Oh, my gosh. Fellas, this has been a wonderful conversation.
Yes.
I really appreciate you making time to be here today. People listening to this episode, engage with your police department, please. Visit the links that are in the show notes below. If you're watching on YouTube, hi, glad to see you. Check out the description in this video and reach out to your local officers. Call the non-emergency line and ask to be put in contact with your beat officers and invite them over for a glass of sweet tea or whatever you choose, and show them hospitality, get to know them, and just engage with the police department that keeps us safe and healthy here.
That's protecting the uniqueness of our nature.
Protecting and serving the uniqueness of McKinney. Yeah. And, any last words, guys? Anything else?
No, we appreciate it. Thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
This has been another episode of the McKinney Podcast, celebrating what makes us unique by nature. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, make it a great day. We'll talk to you later.